Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Ogbanje Joseph. Please subscribe to this channel, share, like, as well as drop a comment on the comment section. Our lecture today is titled The Impact of Imperialism, okay, and the various ways of mitigating its negative narratives. The impact of imperialism and the various ways of mitigating its negative narratives. Okay, now according to Claude Aki, 1982, imperialism is the subordination of one country to another, or at any rate, the attempt to subordinate one country to another in order to maintain a relationship of unequal exchange. Now, the concept of this unequal relationship, okay, now the context of this unequal relationship, was identified by Claude Ake as including military, economic, political, cultural, or some combination of these. Andrew Frank, 1986, insisted that imperialism is not just the territorial expansionist program as argued by the liberal thinkers, but a worldwide relations of the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th centuries, a time of colonial expansion by the industrialized or the industrializing metropole. Now, the impact of imperialism can be positive and negative, but according to Rodney, 1972, if you scale the benefit of colonialism, to the African societies, the debit far outweighs the credits. So imperialism is nothing but domination, exploitation, subjugation, manipulation, and control of weaker societies, in this case, the African societies, by the Western imperial powers. Now, let us look at the impact of imperialism. The following are the negative impact of imperialism. Number one, development of underdevelopment. Now, development of underdevelopment is a process in which certain societies are conditioned and structured to benefit other societies. In which case, now the society that has been conquered to tame nature, but in the interest of another society. Now, underdevelopment is not the absence of development, but the inability of the country to translate the potentials into the benefit of her people. Now, underdevelopment and dependency theory opined that underdevelopment and dependency came up as a result of the relationship, which is parasitic and asymmetrical one. Now, according to Andrew Frank, 1986, he opines that underdevelopment involves imperialism and exploitation. Now, third world societies have been prevented from developing because their economies serve the interests of the West. Andrew Frank, according to Frank, 1969, underdevelopment is the active process of distortion characteristic of the relatively modern states of the third world, of the third world societies. According to Dos Santos, cited in Offiong, 1980, page 73 and 74, Offiong describes dependency, that is citing Dos Santos, as a situation in which a certain group of countries have their economy conditioned by the development and expansion of another economy to which the former is subjected. Now, the relations of interdependence between two or more economies and between these and world trade, assumes the form of dependence when some countries, that is the dominant countries, can expand and give impulse, to their own development, while other countries, the dependent countries, can only develop as a reflection of this expansion Okay, so that is number 2. Now let us look at number 3. Number 3 negative impact of imperialism is that is number 2 now. Number 2 is that it leads to wars and conquest. It leads to wars and conquest. Now, the period from the Berlin Conference to the end of the First World War in 1919 was characterized by imperialist wars against established African kingdoms and empires. Now, several punitive expeditions against restive groups were administered, to force African resistance, to colonial domination, to submission. In some, in some areas in tropical Africa, where pastoralists attempted to escape from the burden of colonial exploitation, the colonial authorities adopted, the scorched earth policy, which ensured that anything that would be relevant to the enemy, in this case the natives, including the homes, animals, and crops, were destroyed. Consequently, even in areas where the colonial authorities succeeded in establishing effective colonial control, it was at great expense to the continent of Africa. Number 3, impact on culture. Impact on culture. Now, education was another instrument of colonial exploitation of Africa. This is because the nature of colonial education was aimed at producing the relevant low-cadre workforce, to facilitate the attainment of European colonial interest and aggrandizement in the continent. It must be realized that this motive is indeed a negation of the fundamental role of education, which seeks to preserve the social structures and lives of the individual members, as well as the promotion of social change in the society. Now, according to Walter Rodney, 1971, page 6, 264, colonial education in Africa simply focused on a few Africans who will assume low-cadre positions as clerks, interpreters, and elementary teachers. The goal was to produce a body of subordinate workers that will help, to enhance the domination and expropriation of surplus from Africa to the metropole Europe. Now, this was not an educational system that emerged from African environment for the interest of the Africans. Neither was it designated to boost the pride and confidence of the African recipients or to enhance, the rational use of the wealth of the continent. Rather, colonial education in Africa was education for subordination, exploitation, creation of mental confusion, and perpetuation of underdevelopment in Africa. Okay, now let us look at the impact of imperialism. That is a positive impact of imperialism. Now, number 1, it showed that imperialism showed the Africans the rudiments of development. Of course, with imperialism, Africa actually had access to development because these infrastructures that the colonial masters actually brought, they brought it, although not because they want to develop the African society, but all the same, it brought about development to the African societies. That's number 1. Number 2, it led to the achievement of flag independence and sovereignty. Okay, of course, it created the state structures, the modern state system, and then, at some point, it led to the flag independence and sovereignty of these states that were created. Number 3, it helped the educated Africans to know their rights and have national consciousness. For the first time, Africans could actually, know their rights, and of course, it led to national consciousness. Number 4, it made Africans to know what it means by power sharing among the various ethnic groups and cleavages. Now, let us look at the ways of mitigating imperialism. How can imperialism be stopped? Number one, protectionism. What is protectionism? Protectionism is the economic policy of restraining trade between two countries through methods such as tariffs on imported goods, restrictive quotas, and a variety of other government regulations designed to allow for fair competition between imports and goods and services produced domestically. Okay. Now, according to Aja Puraja, 2004, protectionist policies protect the businesses and workers within a country by restricting or regulating trade, with foreign nations. Number two, autarky. Autarky. This is a state of being self-sufficient. Autarky exists whenever an entity can survive or continue its activities without external assistance or international trade. Now, this could come in terms of military, economy, or political. Today, complete autarkies are rare. A possible example of a current attempt at autarky is North Korea, based on the government ideology of self-sufficiency, which is concerned with maintaining its domestic localized economy in the face of its isolation. Okay, so that is number two. Then number three, technological theft. Now, technological theft takes place in two main forms. It may include acquisition of intellectual property, such as information on industrial manufacture, ideas, techniques, and processes, recipes and formulas. Now, the second form is when one acquires operational information such as that on customer database, pricing, sales, marketing, of course, research. Then number four, import substitution strategy. Now, this is an economic policy which advocates replacing foreign imports with domestic production. This strategy is based on the premise that a country should attempt to reduce its foreign dependency through the local production of products. Number five, delinking. According to Samir Amin, 1989, delinking or anti-globalization is the solution to the unequal distribution of wealth and prevailing poverty in our world today. The idea of delinking came up as a result of the solution to dependency and world system theories by Fernando Cardozo and Emmanuel Wallerstein. The theory enthused that the only solution to dependency is delinking. Now, in conclusion, therefore, it is a fact that imperialism has both negative and positive dimensions. The positive narratives, as stated above, are those good takeaways from imperialism. But the unfortunate thing is that the negative narratives far outweighs the positive on the various ways to mitigate its negative narratives. I discussed protectionism, autarky, technological theft, import substitution strategy, and delinking, respectively. Thank you very much.